Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Effective Teaching Podcast. We are up to episode 87. So if you would like to grab the show notes or come and watch this in a video format instead, head on over to teacherspd.net/87. Now I need to start by giving you a massive apology. I have been missing in action for about 6 weeks now, I think. Lockdown has been pretty tricky for getting recordings done and just been so much else happening at this point in my life. So I'm happy to be back again and be doing this. I want to give you a quick update as well on my book that I've been working on. My book is now, I've finished my first draft and I'm going through and continuing to do my editing process, and I cannot wait to get that book out for you. It is called Work Less, Teach More. And actually this episode today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit from what I've been doing with that book. So today I'm going to be talking to you about personal effectiveness. Now, Steve Covey, who is the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, has this beautiful story to illustrate this, and it's essentially the story of a man who is cutting down a tree. He has his saw and he's going back and forth cutting this tree down. It's a huge tree and he's been working at it all day. And a guy comes along and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "You see I'm cutting down this tree." He goes, "Oh, you look exhausted. You should have a break and sharpen your saw." He goes, "What do you mean? I don't have time to have a break. I don't have time to sharpen my saw. I've got to cut this tree down." And the conversation goes back and forth like that. And the guy he won't have his break because he has to cut the tree down. But reality is that if he stops and has a break and sharpens his saw, his cuts will be more effective. He will be refreshed and have more energy to keep going. And the tree will actually come down faster. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to personal effectiveness. It's about sharpening your saw. And when it comes to teaching, you need to make sure that you stop and that you refresh yourself and that you sharpen your saw so that you can continue to go at maximum effectiveness, or at least continue to be effective. Because once your saw gets really blunt, you're actually not cutting the tree down at all. You're just wearing yourself out. So this brings me to this idea of what's called the productivity versus personal care balance, right? So a P/PC balance. Our culture tends to put this really high value on the idea of us being busy, right? We kind of wear it as this badge of honor when we talk to our friends. "How are you going?" "Oh, I've just been so busy," right? We say it over and over again. "I'm so busy. I've got so much stuff I've got to get done." And I don't know if we think it makes us look more valuable in our culture, or if I don't know if we're doing it to impress our bosses. I suspect that maybe we're doing it mostly because we want to feel like we're a productive contributor to our family, to our business, to the school, to our students. And so we think that we have to always be busy so that people perceive us as someone who is really doing great things for our kids, for our school, or for our family. But the reality is that many people are so busy being productive they don't actually realize there's a better way, or that they're not getting the right things done, and that they've been so busy that they're actually now not effective in getting those things done because they're so worn out. It actually takes them twice as long to mark a bunch of essays or something, to give feedback to your students. It's going to take you twice as long because you're tired, because you're worn out. Whereas if you looked after yourself, took your break and sharpened your saw, you would actually get that marking done in less than half the time because your brain is focused and ready to go, and you can do it because you yourself are being effective. So it's really about being effective. It's not just about productivity. It's not about increasing how much we get done in less time. It's about getting the right things done in less time. Just by completing your to-do list isn't actually enough to make you effective. It must be prioritized. When you look at your to-do list, you must have decided which ones are more important to get done first, and then to do those things well. And those priorities really should match up with your other larger priorities, but that is for another episode. So just to illustrate this further, have you ever just think about a time when a machine has broken down on you? I remember once I was in a hurry to get to work. I was running a little bit late, so I jumped in my car and I drove off. And on the way to work, I was in such a hurry, I chose not to stop and fill up with petrol. I just needed to get there, but instead, I didn't get there. I ran out of petrol. I had to call my dad to come and bring me some petrol in a tin to put in my car so I could still get to work. And I was much later than I would have been if I had just stopped and filled up with petrol. And that's really a great illustration of what's happening when we're not looking after our personal care. If we focus too much on our productivity and neglect personal care, what ends up happening is that we burn out, we become less useful, we're less effective in what we're doing. And that is really clearly illustrated in any machine. I mean, all of you probably have a car, and I can guarantee you that you get those cars serviced regularly, because you know that if you don't, what ends up happening is that your car breaks down on the highway. And so you need to give yourself some kind of relaxation, some kind of downtime, some kind of personal care, so that your time of productivity is actually more effective. You need to start to take care of yourself. You need to stop and sharpen your saw. So you can do this. You can go and spend some time with your family. You need to prioritize that. Go for a walk today. Get out of your house, right? Particularly if you're in Sydney at the moment in lockdown, get out of your house and go for a walk during recess or your lunch break or after school. Get out and do that and refresh yourself a little bit. You need to start thinking about what you're eating. You can't constantly be eating foods that come out of packages and drinking caffeine, thinking that that's helping you to be productive and helping you to be more effective in what you're doing in your job. It's actually doing the opposite. It's wearing you down. You're breaking your machine. It's like putting the wrong kind of petrol into your car. Eventually, the engine stops working. And so don't wait for your body to break down on you. Start now and start looking after yourself. Eat some more fresh food. Eat your veggies, eat your fruit, and make sure that you're getting less caffeine into your body. In fact, I would encourage you to, over the next week, to even try and detox yourself completely off of caffeine and see how you go. Once you're off the caffeine, see how you go for a week and see if you don't actually feel more energetic off your caffeine. I know that since I have ditched all my coffee, which is probably only about 6 months ago, I found myself way more energetic, because what caffeine does is it gives you this spike of energy, but then it gives you this massive crash afterwards. And your body gets used to it because it's a drug. And so as your body builds up a tolerance for it, you need more caffeine in your body in order to experience just your normal level of awakeness and alertness. And so it's super important for us to actually reduce how much caffeine we're using and only ever consume it at times when you particularly need that extra bit of boost. Don't consume it consistently, because it is going to have a negative effect on your energy levels. You need to make sure you're getting more sleep. We need at least 8 hours of sleep in order for our bodies to completely repair, for our mind to repair itself, for it to be focused, for it to be awake and alert. So make sure you're going to bed early enough so that when you wake up in the morning, your mind can focus and stuff. If you're waking up tired, it's a very clear indication that you're not getting enough sleep. You want to also make sure that you're taking time to look after your body. So maybe you need to go and see your physio that you've been putting it off for a while, or your osteopath, or your dentist. It could be anything. Go and make sure you're putting in the time to look after yourself in that way. Don't wait until you have chronic illnesses, chronic diseases, chronic pains before you go and get yourself looked after. Look after yourself like you do like you do with your car, right? Get regular services and checkups to make sure that you are functioning well. You really need to make sure you don't wait until your body breaks before you go and get help. It's always more expensive and harder work if you wait for yourself to burn out, if you wait for yourself to get chronic fatigue. My mother-in-law, I know, when she was younger, had chronic fatigue because she was burning herself out. She was working too hard, and it took her a long time to recover from that, because it's not an easy thing to recover from. And so I really want to encourage you to look after yourself now before you get to that point. We see so many teachers leaving the profession because they're burning out and they're doing too much work. We need to start making sure we're giving ourselves that regular time to look after ourselves so that we maintain our effectiveness and still have time to enjoy life, right? Personally, I enjoy working in my garden with my family. I find being in nature super refreshing. It brings me, I feel like I'm closer to God when I'm out in nature, and I love being there. I love working in my garden because I get the reward of seeing the plants growing and the food that I get to harvest afterwards. And it's also a chance for me to be with my kids playing outside and enjoying what is there in front of us. And this is what I really enjoy, but I want you to take your own style of break. I want you to think about how you are going to stop and look after yourself. You need to think about taking proper care and use of yourself. So you need to include your breaks. Make sure that break is of benefit to you. I remember my pastor actually once talked about how when you work hard, but he then said when you rest even harder, right? So that means making sure that your rest time is really quality rest, where you're not just lounging on a couch type rest, but rest where you're rejuvenating yourself and looking after yourself. So eat well, sleep more, and get moving as a base for how you get started. Well, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, head over to teacherspd.net/87 for the show notes. I would love to hear from you there as well. Leave a comment. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. I would love to hear from you in that way. And make sure you subscribe and come back and join me again next week. But right now, I'm heading off to my garden. But I want you to think about what you're going to do today to take a break and look after yourself.